in the beginning talking about Sinai. When it comes to Sinai, of course we all know that there were talks about why that marginalization of Sinai Peninsula and the neglect of the government to the peninsula. Well, talking about the presidential elections and the presidential race, of course most of the hopeful presidents are now concentrating on this, and they have the same plans, all of them, for just the development to take place in Sinai. A lot of talks about this, but first let's discuss it with our guest for today. We have the pleasure to have Dr. Adly Hassanein. He's an international expert in strategic planning and sustainable development. Welcome, Doctor, to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Hassanein. And as Nashwa was just saying a bit earlier, there has been marginalization to the Sinai Peninsula during the past decades. What are the main reasons for such marginalization?
I guess first reason is the administrative division of Sinai and the position in the overall administrative system in Egypt. Sinai was isolated for a long time.
Geographically, you mean?
Administratively. And our equipment cannot go beyond that. So we didn't have any control on it.
You're referring to the period of the war of attrition, or you mean even after that Israel had control over Sinai Peninsula?
After Camp David agreement prohibit Egypt from having any presence in the eastern half of Sinai.
But does that give Israel control over the peninsula?
Sure. They control in a way that you're not even working on developing any plans on Sinai because you lack security. How can you develop any program in the eastern side of Sinai while you cannot provide security system? Any country without your police system, army system, surveillance system, you cannot allow people to go there.
Well, talking about developments, of course, you have your own ideas about the geographical distribution, and you have some plans for the Sinai Peninsula. Could you tell us more about it?
In fact, so many studies have been undertaken for Sinai, and major studies were done. Sinai can become, if we are sincere and if we have good planners in our system, Sinai can become equivalent to Hong Kong, and equivalent to Thailand, and equivalent to
How can we do this?
Singapore. Just we have to allow Egyptians to go to Sinai. The way the country is divided now, the Suez Canal, it's like a natural division and separate Sinai from the rest of Egypt. Even with tunnels and bridges, you still have police security standing there prohibiting people to go as if you need a permission inside your own country. Why Sinai is prohibited, I can't understand it. I mean, I lived in Sinai and I had a lot of research in Sinai since 1964, and I have a lot of study on it. I cannot understand why Sinai has to stay separated from homeland and then accusing the local population of being not nationalistic. I mean, it's unacceptable. So all our plans in Sinai was, the development plans were absolutely temporary plans, like tourism in the south. Build hotels, build resorts, build diving schools. But once you get hit by an enemy like Israel, everybody will leave the buildings and go away. There is nothing to fight for because all your money as a tourist, you put it in somewhere else. So you don't have investment really, building. But development of Sinai should be basically based on a global approach and a sustainable development plan for Sinai, taking into considerations all the elements of development. We have plans for that, and nobody would like to take a step forward. The step forward, one, is to change the administrative division of Sinai, allow the Suez Canal cities, Port Said or governor, Port Said, Suez, Ismailia, to go deeper in Sinai, to have a larger backyard so their population can start say it's an Egyptian invasion of Sinai, not an enemy invasion of Sinai.
So when you're actually referring to encouraging Egyptians to go to Sinai, you mean to go and live there, not to go visit Sinai as tourists or spend some vacation there?
We have to have a development plan. Like one, we have to attract investment and high value investment. One, tourism has to be not only for diving. You have the Mediterranean region, about 220 kilometers coast of Sinai from the Port Said all the way to Rafah. It's not used. And even we have lakes with special quality fish. The Israelis used to export fish from the lakes in northern Sinai. Once we took over, the population ignored all the values and the fish population was destroyed, and we didn't do anything about it until now. We have in northern Sinai the most beautiful migration road for birds, the protectorate of Zaranik, where if you go you see hundreds of thousands of flamingos. Egyptians don't know that we have flamingos up there. We have beautiful lakes, and so nobody's using them because we don't have a plan for it. But if we have a great plan, well, we have to invest in tourism, north and south. We have to invest in religious tourists, because Sinai is the peninsula where the three monotheistic religions came. Moses came, we have Mount Sinai, and the Holy Family with Jesus, they crossed from Sinai, and Amr ibn al-As came to Egypt from Sinai. The pilgrimage for years and years goes through Sinai, and we didn't do anything. It's like a temporary place, just hit and run, and you don't do anything. And actually, the agriculture in Sinai is an excellent element, and it can feed the entire population if we abide by the rules. Means in a desert climate, you don't waste your water. You have to select the high quality and water drought resistant plants, the plants that don't take a lot of water. Olive trees, some peaches, fruit, the palm trees. We're destroying the palms, and we were supposed not to destroy the palms to make peaches or to make construction. The second element is the urban development for Sinai. You cannot divide the country, the peaches in Sinai, and slice it with a scissors and say, you take a piece, and everybody build their resort. No, we have to develop cities and towns so that people can live 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So
But isn't this the case in many cities in Sinai?
No, only Sharm el-Sheikh, and it's a small city, and it's only serving, I mean, you get people, population to work there, and to go in the morning work in the resorts and the tourism. You want to develop Taba as a city, a complete city, and say Taba will be the city for international banks, offshore banks, and you bring them there and you say, you invest in Taba with zero tax. You don't pay anything. Many banks will come to you because they don't want to pay taxes. You develop El Arish, the city of mining and development of agriculture, special agriculture. You have to understand, we have 25 wonderful medicinal plants and aromatic plants in Sinai, and we have hundreds of thousands of kilometers of these aromatic plants. They are natural. We don't even do anything to collect
them.
Why
whenever we talk about Sinai, we always talk about investing in tourism? Why is that idea? And in the meantime, just as you mentioned, we can have a lot of things over there. We can move on to live over there and have our own homes, our own life, schools and universities as well. Not only just people going over there and they are working, for example, in such a hotel, and if anything happens, just as you mentioned at the beginning, they will leave.
I'll give you an example. You're right to ask the question, because we don't have the mentality of investing in the future.
We have the beach, so it is tourism. That's it.
And we don't invest we don't even go beyond the beaches because we don't have an excellent beach tourism. We don't have that. Give you an idea, investing in human resources. We do not have a plan to invest in human resources. We have 80 million Egyptians or plus, and we don't know what to do with them. And we let them go crazy. I mean, people lose hope every day. You get girls, boys educated. We even pushed the Bedouin to send their kids to schools, but then they have no jobs because we don't develop alternative jobs. Everything has to be tourism, and tourism for rich. We're not even doing tourism, popular tourism. I would like to take a bus with my family and go to Sinai. Why should I have to have a car if we have a train that's excellent and we can go to Sinai? Why not? Why don't we send our students, our kids, school kids, to have a trip to Sinai every year? So imagine millions of students and kids going to Sinai. So by discovering that more than 40% of schools and educational centers are dilapidated. You cannot even go to the school. The kids have no bathrooms. They have no water. They have to bring their water with them when they go to school. How can you develop a country like that? And when you talked about tourism, obviously, we have no idea about the rich energy of Sinai. I mean, Sinai does not need electricity. You can use natural resources like the sun, like the wind, and you...
This is a dream for all Egypt, all over Egypt.
Can you believe we spent the dream? We spent close to 70 billion Egyptian pounds on Sinai in the last 30 years with Mubarak regime, and nothing is there except few concessions for cement factories that were used to export cement to Israel to build the wall.
Yes.
To build the wall. I mean, we participated in destroying the Palestinian dream even by exporting our cement from Sinai to the Israelis. So it's crazy. I mean, probably the most important approach to the development of Sinai is to have Sinai as a region, a complete region, a unit, and forget about having a governor south, governor in the north. Have it like an entire region with one development plan, and should be the objective. We are not going to leave Sinai to be an easy target for Israelis or for invasion anymore in our life. It has to be done, and once for all. We should have a plan to move forward with development of skills of Egyptians, university graduates, training schools. Everything has to be focused on, at least we have a plan for the next 25 years and go one step at a time. Like first 5 years, 5 million Egyptians will be moving to Sinai with great hope. Schools, centers, banks, education material, tourism, developing energy. I mean,
Dr. Hassanein, these are long-term projects. You're talking about 25 years. And right now, as we are starting a new phase in the history of Egypt, and as we are approaching the presidential elections, and almost all the presidential candidates are talking about developing the Sinai Peninsula, so we are expecting to see results in the shorter time span, not after 25 years. So what are the priorities? What do you think should be on the top of the agenda of the coming president when it comes to developing Sinai? We know that there are many challenges and many obstacles that are hindering the development of the peninsula, but what are the main projects that you think should be on the top of the upcoming
We are the only country on earth that are not developing our plans for a longer term. We're only developing short term. Every 5 years you have a development plan, and then by the time you reach the end of the 5 years, you didn't even do anything for the rest of the plan. And then you change the government, and you get a new government and a new minister. He will come and start from scratch. We're a country that always starts from scratch. We need to have an objective. a long-term objective. It's called the seventh generation. You have to plan for yourself, your child, your grandchild, all the way 7. But it doesn't mean that we're going to wait only for a 7th generation to work, but you have a plan and steps, and you go, that's sustainability. If you have, we had 2 million palm trees in Sinai. When we took over from Israel, we destroyed close to 1 million of that. This is not planning for the future.
So what's the first step that you expect?
The first step is to change rules and regulations on laws and enforce the law. Nobody can get away with any mistakes in our development anymore, because it is our future. We invest in the future. We cannot prepare our kids to get out of school and university and not giving them the hope to find a job. I mean, we are the only country that educate people for no job and train people we don't have jobs. I mean, how can we continue doing that? We have a loss every year of $40 billion. You know why? Because the youth have no jobs. Imagine you have a manpower and they cannot work, you lose money. We need to employ those. So Sinai, I disagree with you on this point only. I don't say we stop working and we have a new president. No, but we have to get rid of the mentally retarded ministers, governors, and alike, because they can think. We need thinkers for the country. And look around you, with a lot of excellent generation, they can do that.
Definitely. But doctor, don't you think, talking about the plans, as Mahitab mentioned, maybe our main issue is that we never have the good planners in Egypt, and of course we all know this, but we need to have a short-term plan and a long-term plan. And this never happens. Usually we concentrate on the 5 years plan. But do you think it can happen that we can have both of them? And this is to talk about perfection, to reach perfection, what we want, to know where I want to be after 5 years and where I want to be after 30 years. And I have to understand, of course, where am I standing today?
5 years is a short term. And intermediate term, it is beyond 5 years. And when you go to 20, like every country, you're going to the longer term. Imagine that I participated in the development of the 100 years plan of the United States. I mean, people look beyond their life, and that's why the country doesn't go down. When it goes down, it goes up again, because nothing is changed. Only the environment, only the people, but you have a plan. I think what we need from the new president is to consider Sinai as a priority, because it is an excellent place. Imagine a place surrounded by water from all directions, and a place with excellent tourism potential. You have Mount Sinai, you have, that's the religion part, and you go to North Sinai, you have the bird sanctuary, you go to South Sinai, you go to Ras Muhammad. I mean, from sea to air.
Paradise.
Paradise. But we're not considering, and please go and visit. We added ugly buildings to Sinai. We didn't start with solar villages, with solar buildings. No, we have to.
We, as the Egyptian population, we're totally aware of that, and we visit Sinai, and we love Sinai, and we spend magnificent time there. But the problem is with those who are in charge, who actually implement the plans and are supposed to design plans, and this is where the problem is, and this is where we hope the solution comes from. And that brings us to the end of this interview. We thank you so much for joining us, and that is unfortunately all the time we have, but we'll be talking more again definitely about the development of Sinai Peninsula. We thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Adly Hassanein, international expert in strategic planning and sustainable development.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And talking about overpopulation and finding some solutions for this, we have some campaigns by the British University in Cairo, and let's check it together in this report. We'll be back right after.